Hey everyone, welcome to Getaway Day, episode 11. Gautam Rao with Mason Lott.
Howdy.
Um, if you're watching on YouTube or Twitch, you can see that I'm wearing a pitching ninja hat. We're going to do a big deep dive into pitching this week, specifically young pitchers, and we're going to conduct our own two-man draft going head to head. Before we get to that, we'll do This Week in Baseball. We'll do a stat of the week and finish up with a new segment. So let's get into it. How are you doing today, Mason?
I am doing pretty darn well. A little bored. There's only 3 games today, and only 2 of them were even supposed to be on the schedule. One of them is a postponement makeup between, who was it? The
The Red Sox,
Marlins.
Red Sox and the Marlins.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
very odd slate.
I
Three
don't know.
games.
I'm in a very chill mindset because of it. Because it's like there's no content for me to try and analyze. So I've just filled that with like looking through a crap ton of baseball cards and trying to get some of the cards that we opened on stream here and is on our YouTube channel on Saturday. Just getting those all sorted and logged and everything. So how was your weekend?
Not too bad. Me and you actually were able to secure tickets for the Cubs Cardinals game coming up this weekend at Wrigley Field with a 100% capacity. So really looking forward to that, and that's going to be great.
It's gonna be wild.
Yes. So this week in baseball, what happened?
All right, so the sky is falling. Well, okay, maybe not the sky. But if you watch the Phillies Nats game, yesterday,
I think it was yesterday.
yeah, yesterday, they had a game stoppage for a while, and the grounds crew was out. So when I saw that on Twitter, I'm like, oh, it must be raining. No, the entire netting from right field foul pole to left field foul pole fell down. So they spent like an hour trying to pull the net back up. So 2021 is throwing some new wrenches into Major League Baseball. Things that I don't think anyone ever anticipated would happen. So it's wild. But
Yeah, I don't think that's. I don't think netting is really a form of precipitation that we're used to. But
yeah,
uh,
there's not exactly a tarp that helps with that.
no. Couple other notes from today's transaction wire. Jared Kelenic sent down to the minor leagues. He's mired in an 0 for 39 stretch, which is bordering on Chris Davis levels of bad. So that happened, and Keston Hira also was sent down, and he's really been struggling, even though he's already spent some time in the minors, came back and still really not hitting.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what's going on with Hira. With Kelnick, it's weird because part of it is probably just to, excuse me, trying to adjust to major league pitchers. Because I mean, even in AAA, like the pitchers are good, but the difference between AAA and major league pitchers is insane. So if you could hit a fastball at AAA, you'll probably be able to catch up to a fastball in the majors. It's just a little bit quicker still. But breaking balls and off-speed pitches can be even nastier in the majors. So a lot of hitters struggle with that. And I haven't really done a deep dive into Kelnick's numbers because I was preparing for our big segment today. But so that could be the adjustment he needs. But then I think as Matthew was mentioning to us earlier, like there's also a mental side of it too, that now he's 0 for 39, so trying to work through those struggles, he may just need some time in AAA, even though he had already raked there and he's really not going to develop much more. It's just a confidence boost.
Yeah, for sure. And I did notice that his BABIP has actually been extremely depressed. It's 109, so he's been hitting into some bad luck too, to
Yeah.
go with all the strikeouts and things. So
Yeah, and
hopefully he's
it's
back up soon, and I'm sure he'll do better.
it's a little bit reminiscent, more of an extreme, obviously, but it's a little bit reminiscent of Carlson's initial struggles last year when he came up. because he had a really suppressed BABIP and was just struggling, and he was struggling against curveballs at that point too. He went down, got a confidence builder, came back, and then went on a tear at the end of the season. So hopefully Kelenic can have a similar thing. So
Completely, yeah.
so
Moving along to another series that happened this weekend between the Cardinals and the Reds. The Reds actually swept the Cardinals in St. Louis
you
for the
can
first time since 1990.
you can
So,
use words that don't make me sad.
well, it's historic. It hasn't happened in our lifetime even.
Yeah. All right, you're allowed
And
to make
a
me
big
sad for
part of that,
once.
yeah, and
Yeah.
a big part of that was because of Jesse Winker
Yeah.
on
So
Sunday. What did he do?
Jesse Winker on Sunday hit or went 3 for 5 with 3 home runs. And then he had actually hit a home run in the first game of the series. Um, so yeah, he let's see. So he went 3 for 5 with 1 home run in game one, 1 for 5, 1 for 5, 3 for 5 with 3 home runs. So in 2 games, he just basically single-handedly beat us in that series.
Yeah,
But
he's been on an absolute like tear this season. It's his second 3 home run game. That's the first time that's ever happened within one season for the Reds ever. Um, he's second in batting average in the entire league, and I don't think anyone really thought that he was going to have this type of power. Everyone knew that Winker could hit, and that was why he was drafted, I think, in the compensation round in 2012. He was not super athletic. He's not really a good defender, as we've talked about on this podcast. But he always has hit through the minor leagues, but he never really showed this power. And now he has 17 home runs. So you kind of have to believe it. I don't really think it's a fluke.
no, I don't. I don't think it is either. I mean, you and I. Let's see. It was you, me, and I think our buddy William went to a Reds Cubs game, and we sat in the left field boxes, right? And didn't
Yeah, I think it
Winker
was
hit?
just us for that game. He hit a huge 3 run homer to,
Oh, yeah,
you
we were
know,
sitting down the third baseline in that game.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and Winker just every time he hits the ball, he hits it really, really, really hard. And so I'm not really shocked to see his power numbers be off the charts. I kind of always thought him and Suarez could just go and be like this major power duo threat, and Votto be the on base guy in front of him. Obviously, Votto's injured now, and Suarez is below the Mendoza line, I think.
yeah,
So still,
definitely.
but he's still got a lot of home runs for being
Oh
below
yeah,
the Mendoza line.
oh yeah. The
But yeah,
power's not going anywhere.
but Winker on the season is hitting 350. His BABIP looks concerning until you realize his actual average too. It's a 371 BABIP. He's got a 189 WRC plus. The dude's just insane. But and then the other guy who did quite a bit of damage in that series for the Reds was Nick Castellanos. I think for the first 3 games of the series, he was finishing up a 21 game hitting streak where 15 of those games he had multiple hits. So he was just on an absolute tear. Quite a few home runs in that, if I remember right. I don't have the exact
Yeah,
number off the
and
top of
that
my head, but
21 game hitting streak is particularly notable because in this day and age, getting that many hits is like pretty much unheard of. A 21 game hitting streak is like a old school 30 game hitting streak, I feel like. And that's the longest hitting streak that the Reds have had since Brandon Phillips in 2007 when he had a 22 game hitting streak. So those guys just keep mashing.
yeah, I'm looking to see. Actually, it looks like he only had 3 home runs in that hit streak. Yeah, so that's a little surprising. But then on the other side of the diamond there, the Cardinals did have a bright spot for throughout this entire month. Um, and that was Tyler O'Neill. He hit, let's see, 8 home runs in the month of May. Well, I guess 7, I guess, because one of them was in June that I'm looking at here. So he had 7 home runs in the month of May. He's on the season is hitting 278. The fun thing with Tyler O'Neill, I think I mentioned this last week. He's striking out 34% of the time and walking 2.5% of the time, yet he's got 13 home runs. So it's a little weird because it doesn't seem sustainable at all. But the power that he has is sustainable. I just fail to see how he's going to continue hitting 278. So, yeah.
Yeah, and while we're talking about mashing guys, I think I have to bring up Patrick Wisdom at this point. The guy's hit 7 home runs in his first 8 starts with the team. That's only happened 2 other times in the history of baseball. And I can tell you those 2 players, they're very different. One is Aristides Aquino back in 2019 with the Reds, and the other one was Trevor Story in his rookie year. So 2 very different type of players. I mean, I would probably bet that Patrick Wisdom is more of a flash in the pan type guy, but
So
it
Patrick
is
Wisdom has
still
been
pretty
on
cool.
4 different teams now. He came up with the Cardinals,
Yeah,
debuted with the Cardinals, went to Texas, I think, after that.
correct.
And then he went to
He went to Seattle. He never got into a game and signed with the Cubs late last season, and he's here with the major league club because of so many injuries to Cubs position players, and he's always had ridiculous power, and it's kind of cool that he's getting an actual opportunity to show what he can do in the big leagues.
yeah. Yeah, I really hope it works out for him. I always thought that, especially coming up through AAA, Patrick Wisdom was a guy that I heard about a lot. And I do really like the guy. He just didn't really pan out in St. Louis because we had a whole bunch of different guys at that point. There just really wasn't room for him on the club. So, yeah, hopefully he could keep performing well. I just hope that he performs well in games that the Cubs lose. That would be ideal for me. So,
Yeah, we will see.
and
He is
then,
actually batting cleanup tonight for the Cubs.
is he really?
Yeah.
That'll be fun. I'll have to watch that. But then, speaking of the kids mashing, I'm fairly certain that Vlad, Fernando, and Ronald, all 3 juniors, are tied for the league in home runs. Does that sound right? Or did someone finally take the lead?
Vlad is up by 1, and in that second tier with the 17 home runs, you can add Jesse Winker to that group.
No, I don't want to. He doesn't have a junior at the end of his name. It's not Jesse Winker Jr.
Yeah, that's probably right.
Yeah, so we can't add him to the list. It's all
Well,
the
he
juniors.
does happen to have 17 home runs. We can't ignore that.
Well, I'm going to.
Okay.
I don't like Jesse Winker.
I know that.
He's too good, and he's on the other team, and I hate it. It's
Yeah.
terrible. But all I feel is pain. Quote from Change Up 7. But yeah, no, and I think this is actually probably a good time to bring up that it is June now, so we should be doing our awards. We decided not to do a big awards segment like last month, but we did go ahead and pick the Mike Trout Player of the Month. And that Mike Trout Player of the Month is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. We got him this nice little trophy, and he even posed for us. It was great. But yeah, so Vladdy in the month of May, 9 home runs, a 302 average. He had 32 hits across 121 plate appearances. Only struck out 16 times. Was hit by pitch twice. and actually grounded into more double plays than he did in April. So some high notes and low notes there, but Vladdy just absolutely mashed and is
And
very deserving, I think.
yeah, completely agree. And something to keep an eye on as we keep progressing through this season is he's pretty close to leading all three categories of the Triple Crown. So he leads in home runs. He has the best average in the American League, and he's one RBI off the lead in that category. So hopefully we can get another Triple Crown winner if you're into traditional stats.
Oh, I love traditional stats. I think it would be really cool to see a Triple Crown winner now. What Miggy was the last one, right? In
Yep,
2013?
2012 or 2013. I can't remember which year.
But let's see, how many RBIs does Vladdy have? Yeah, Vladdy's at 47 RBIs.
47.
47
Yep.
at this point in the season is insane, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
100 RBIs used to be the mark for, like, if you cracked 100, you were driving in a lot of runs. And now we're only 2 months into like a 5.5 month season, and he's got half that already.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's always a couple guys that reach 120 or 130 or whatever.
Yeah. What are the chances we could see 150?
I think A-Rod got pretty close to 150 in 2007. So it's happened in recent memory. So
Yeah. Let's see. And then what else did we have here? Ah, yes. Part 3. Welcome to Part 3 of an ongoing series we like to call This Week in Cheating News. Sticky stuff. So MLB put out a statement last week, basically saying that they had talked to teams and or owners and said that the cheating problem is now getting out of hand. They're going to start to actually crack down on it in season after they had gone back and forth on, like, are we actually going to do something this year or not? And then with the whole situation with Giovanni Gallegos and just fans everywhere just being really pissed off at the entire situation. And Trevor Bauer comes out on Pitching Ninjas podcast and basically said, if everyone else is speeding why and getting away with it, why wouldn't I speed too? After a couple years ago proving that this is the only way to get your spin rate up above 3,000, blah, 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 he basically admitted he's using sticky stuff because everyone else is and is getting away with it. So if everyone else gets the competitive edge, you almost have to have it. So that's where we're at. I don't know if you've got any more on that.
I just wanted to say that just looking at the game logs for two specific pitchers, Garrett Cole and then Bauer. So Garrett Cole's four seam fastball spin rate dropped down in his last start a considerable amount, considering how consistent he is from start to start. So his line of all his starts in 2021, it's just a horizontal line basically. There's very little variation. And then in his last start, it just drops down below 2,500 RPM. He hasn't dropped below 2,500 RPM on his spin rate on his fastball in literally years. So makes you wonder and um, gives you something to keep an eye on going forward. See where he is in the next start.
Yeah. And I've seen some tweets from, like, I think Ken Rosenthal, Buster Olney, a couple of those guys that have been, like, just given some information that they've heard from some of baseball's or MLB's conversations about what they might do. And it sounds like they're planning on doing random checks of pitchers, and the random checks are probably going to be when the pitcher comes out of the game as to not affect pace of play. So they're not really random. It's when the pitcher comes out of the game, but they're going to check every pitcher. I don't know if they're going to, like, give them like a full-on strip search or what, because I'm sure there's creative ways that you could hide sticky stuff.
Yep.
I think every baseball player I've ever seen grabs his junk at some point, and I don't think we're going to be allowing Joe West and Angel Hernandez to be checking pants.
Yeah, I would not like that.
So,
But yeah, this is going to continue being a topic of conversation because it's one of the biggest stories in the league right now. And really, if they do crack down on this, it's gonna it's gonna solve more problems than people might realize, in my opinion, because um, just the pitchers having that extra edge when they're already so talented and things like that, that hopefully will, level the playing field and get the balance of hitting and pitching back in order and hopefully improve the pace of play and have more balls in play.
yeah, because, I mean, just the more that a pitch moves, the harder it is to hit, the more that you're going to see strikeouts leading to the three true outcomes. So if you can get rid of that, it moves even slightly less. Like I think we were talking last week where it looks like Luis Castillo's circle change is moving laterally less, which I don't think is because of that. I think there's something else going on there. I'm not accusing him of cheating. He could be, but I don't think that's this problem. But it made him more hittable. And so now, whenever Castillo starts, you start seeing teams hit the ball more, and it makes it a faster paced game just because there's more action on the field. So, yeah, I think cracking down on this could fix the whole pace of play issue that Major League Baseball seems to be concerned with.
Yeah,
So,
and this is something that's controllable from their end, and it doesn't require like a big drastic change like moving the mound back or banning the shift or anything like that. This is just saying, hey, don't cheat, don't break the rules of the game. We're gonna actually enforce it.
it's amazing how the sport's been around since, or like the teams in this league have been around since 1860. 1860? Is that when the Reds were founded? Because they just had
It
their
was in that
150th.
decade. I don't remember the exact year.
They just
It
had
was
their
the '60s, I'm pretty sure.
150th anniversary
Okay.
already. So I don't remember. But yeah, we've had the game for that long. We've had so many different cheating scandals, and yet we just openly just like don't police cheating at all. Like we check for steroids now, but then we also check for not steroids and accuse people of steroids. So
Yeah.
why the hell don't we check for like actual very obvious cheating that I can see on my TV? I don't see people getting their steroid shots in their butts, but I can see Garrett Cole reaching for his for something on his glove.
Yeah.
Well,
Um,
it just
yeah.
makes no sense.
Well, cheating's just a part of the history of baseball, and that's not going to change.
But
There's going to
Pete
be
Rose
some
isn't
other way
allowed
that
in the
people will
hall.
find to cheat. Correct.
Whatever.
That's a completely different story. So
Maybe
we
that's
will
a
move on.
that's a future topic though. I like that.
Could be, yeah.
All right.
All right. So now we've talked about this week, and let's go on to a stat of the week. And since today we're going to be talking about pitchers, I picked one out that I really like because of its simplicity, and that's called strikes plus whiffs, which is given the acronym CSW. So the reason this one is really nice is just because of how simple it is to calculate, unlike some of the other ones that we've talked about, like WOBA and WRC plus. They're pretty complicated, and you can't like really figure out a way to um, calculate it on your own without a bunch of help, probably. So this one, it's for pitchers, and it's the number of called strikes that they get plus the number of whiffs, so swings and misses, divided by the total number of pitches that the pitcher throws. So it can be used on a start by start basis or over a sample of starts. And the nice thing is that it stabilizes relatively quickly. So in 4 or 5 starts, you can start having a predictive quality to the statistics. So we talked about FIP being one of the ERA estimators. So there's another one, Sierra. I'm not going to go into that today, but CSW correlates really well with Sierra. So a pitcher that has a higher
So,
CSW rate.
without going into it, will you just like say what Sierra stands for?
I don't remember exactly,
Okay,
but it
sorry.
basically boils down pitcher skill to the things that they control, just like FIP uses strikeouts and walks and home runs. So it's kind of stripping away the defense and just looking at the pitcher from a perspective.
Yeah,
Uh,
skill,
so
interactive, earned run average.
okay, yeah, I would not have remembered that. So yeah, so it's got a lot better correlation with an estimator like Sierra. So you can use it to figure out how pitcher might perform going forward. So the average rate is around 30% in the league. So if you see like in one start, a guy has like a 25% CSW, then maybe they weren't really on their game. They weren't throwing strikes and they weren't really getting swings and misses. So traditionally, we've looked at those elements of CSW separately, but a lot better way is to add them together and really give the credit to the pitcher for getting strikes, whether they're swinging or whether they're of the called strike variety. So as we go forward into our draft, I'll probably use CSW a couple of times, and just we can talk about how it's applied there. Do you have any other thing you'd like to add?
Um, no, I think you pretty well hit it. Just I don't know if you mentioned it or if I just totally missed it trying to mess with some audio settings here. Um, what's like the is it 30% and higher is where we basically say that's like a pretty good outing.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's usually pretty good. So this year, the leader in CSW with a ridiculous 36.3% is Corbin Burns. Number two is Jacob DeGrom at 34.9%. But anything over 30 is pretty good.
Okay, and CSW can also be used for over a period of time that's more than just one game too, to show how someone's been over a full span, right?
Yep, that's
Okay,
correct.
yeah, cause I'm just verifying because I used it exactly one time in my my prep for the next segment here. So when I cited it, I wanted to make sure I was using it right. So, but if
Nice.
I use it wrong, call me out. We'll use this as a learning
Okay, will do.
experience.
That's what we try to do here. So now I think it is time to commence the first ever Getaway Day Young Pitcher Draft. So I'll just go over the rules and the stipulations real quick before we get started. So um, all the pitchers that we're going to pick are going to be 20 under 26 years old. They had to have made their major league debut in 2019, 2020, or this season. Um, we eliminated all seriously injured pitchers that are on the 60-day injured list, and then
Or
we're gonna draft five
also
different rounds.
to note, uh, or the 10-day IL if your injury is broken hand. Waskar
that's
Inoa,
the
I'm looking at you.
that's the Lascar special. Um, yeah, so we're gonna go 5 rounds to create a full starting rotation, and we'll alternate. We won't do a snake draft. So I'm gonna flip a coin here. I'll have you call it in the air for the first pick here.
Okay.
All right, flipping it right now.
Tails.
It is indeed tails. So go ahead and take your pick.
All right. So my first pick is a guy who is in his third year now. I believe he's 26. I didn't actually put their ages on here.
I
Um,
thought we said under 26.
or 25. Sorry. Let me look it up. I know it's. I thought I said. Oh, I don't know what I said. Let me look it up just to confirm that I'm not going to say something stupid here. I'm like 99% certain it's okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, no Shohei Otani because he made his debut in 2018. No Corbin Burns also made his debut in
No
2018.
Jack Flaherty, no Wandy
Yeah.
Peralta. Um, okay, my first pick is 25 years, 10 months, and 4 days.
Okay.
All
I
right,
think I know who it is. Go ahead.
I am taking Zach Gallen with the number one pick. Zach Gallen has been pitching since 2019. Um, he has amassed a total of 3.8 WAR since that time, which I believe out of all qualified pitchers for this draft, he has accumulated the most WAR so far. This season, he's got zero point 0.7. His career ERA in 178.2 innings is a 2.82. He's consistently had a 28% strikeout percentage in the majors, 10.1 walk percentage. He's got a 1.18 whip. His BABIP is consistently on the low side, but not like a concerningly low side where you think that he's going to have major regression. Um, Let me see what it was. I didn't write it down, but I've got his page up now. So like right now he's got a 258. In 2020 he had a 266. So I would expect that to probably be up closer to 280, 290. Does that seem reasonable for BABIP?
Yeah, and then some of it's just part of his skills as a pitcher. He's a guy that can suppress some of the contact that he does allow, and inducing weak contact leads to lower BABIP. So that's part of his skill set, and he's yeah, he's definitely probably got the most experience out of any of the pitchers that we've mentioned that we're going to mention in this draft. And he's been consistently good basically from the time that he made his debut with Miami in 2019 before he got traded to Arizona midseason. That trade makes a little bit more sense now, looking at how good Jazz Chisholm has been. But at the time, it was kind of like, this guy's really good. Why are we trading a really good pitcher for some random prospect? But that random prospect was Jazz.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
I really like this pick, and hopefully Zach Gallen can come back healthy because he's actually suffering from a UCL sprain, which sounds really bad. And
I
I hope
I thought it was a shoulder.
it's a UCL thing.
Oh. I misread it as shoulder, so that actually could be Tommy John. He may not be qualified. I may have to put an asterisk next to my pick.
He's actually been making bullpen like side session, and he's supposedly going to be back relatively soon. So hope, fingers crossed, that he's actually healthy, and I think he'll go back to being the guy that he's been really throughout his career so far.
All right, so that is my pick. Who is your number one pick of the 2021 pitchers under 26 draft?
Yeah, we don't have a Roger Goodell to make the picks. I have to make them for myself, I guess.
I mean, I'm in my upstairs. It's not my basement, but it's basically the same thing.
Yeah, close enough. All right, so my pick is 23-year-old left-handed pitcher for the Miami Marlins, Trevor Rogers. So Trevor Rogers, 2017 first-round draft pick by the Marlins, out of high school. He made his debut in 2020, and he was pretty bad, honestly. He had a 6.06, 6.11 ERA, but he showed a lot of promise. He was still striking out 30% of the guys that he faced last year, but he was definitely flying under the radar because of the team that he pitches on. They've got Sandy Alcantara, Pablo Lopez, Sixto Sanchez before he got hurt, and Trevor Rogers was not even a lock to make the opening day rotation. He made it with a solid spring training performance, and he has been incredible in 2021. 197 ERA, um, backed by a 344 xFIP, 29.7% strikeout rate, and I'll reference the CSW is 30.6%, which is 22nd in the league among qualified starters. He's a guy that has he's super tall. He's 6'5", so he gets a an extension, so he's able to deliver the ball. Kind of this concept, kind of like I feel like people don't really talk about it that much, but with tall pitchers and sometimes short pitchers, but usually tall pitchers, they can release the ball a lot closer to the plate, so it makes whatever they're throwing perceived to be even faster. So with a guy like Rogers, who already has really good fastball velocity, he averages 95 on his fastball, but since he's releasing the ball out like 6.8 feet away from the rubber, uh, that gets on the hitters real fast, and that's how he's had so much success. And he's got a really good changeup, and now he's got a slider that getting a ton more whiffs than it did in 2020. So that's my pick.
I like that pick a lot. Yeah, I actually thought I was going to end up with Trevor Rogers with my next pick, so I'm a little bummed, but I mean, I get the guy that I had number 2, so that works out for me. The one thing I did want to mention is, even though he was pretty bad in 2020, he was bad presumably because the defense behind him was not stellar. The Marlins had some big issues with with COVID for one, so like they had just a rotating cast of players the whole time. So his 6.11 ERA was actually, he had an expected ERA of 3.53, which is a huge difference. So
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And his FIP was also about, shoot, I got to do math. 0.66 higher than his xFIP. So
yeah, so by no means did he deserve that 6.11, but that's what people see front and center, and they're like, "Oh, this guy's probably not that great."
yeah, and so Trevor Rogers was really good on his own last year. He did struggle, and it was mostly because of that whole defense. He had a 1.61 WHIP, which is pretty
And so
high.
lots of walk too. Yeah.
Well, only a 10% walk percentage. That's not insane.
So I guess lots of hits.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so no, I love that pick. That's a good number 1. So I guess that leaves my number 2 as my number 2 in my my pre-draft rankings here. I'm taking Ian Anderson from Atlanta. Let me go ahead and put it up on the board here. Sorry for all the clicking and clacking, everybody. I know you can hear it through the microphone, so hopefully you just find it soothing like I do. Yeah, so Ian Anderson debuted in 2020, and he I don't actually know when he was drafted. I think he was drafted relatively recently, right?
He was drafted in 2016.
Okay, so 2016 third overall pick. So he debuted last year. Pitched or started in 6 games. I believe he pitched out of the bullpen 2 or 3 times as well.
I believe he started all those games actually.
Okay, gotcha. But yeah, so he pitched 32.1 innings over 6 games to a 1.95 ERA, backed by a 2.54 FIP, a 29.7 K percentage, a 10.1 walk percentage. His batting average against was only 172 with a 250 BABIP, and he only had a 1.23 WHIP. He's followed up that 1.1 WAR rookie season in the shortened 2020 by amassing another 1.1 WAR so far this season, in 11 starts, 59 and a third innings. His ERA has regressed from that 195, which is kind of to be expected. That's kind of an insane ERA, especially for such a young guy. He's got a 3.64, backed by a 3.58 FIP. So he's earning his ERA. His K rate is actually down to 26.1. His walk rate is staying pretty consistent, but his whip has gone down. His batting average against has gone up. So there's just some weird, or there's some trade offs with his stats there. So I'm a little concerned that his K rates come down, but he's still pitching really, really, really well and doing it across almost 100 innings now. I feel comfortable taking him at number 2 in this draft.
Yeah, and we're talking about he's what 23 still, and this will be his first full season, so not like he's super experienced at this point. And the one thing that stood up about him for me is that his changeup is insanely good. No one seems to know what's going on when this pitch comes in, so it's like around 88 miles per hour, and it doesn't really have uh, the characteristics of a lot of other changeups because it actually has less drop and horizontal movement than the average changeup. But the results it get, you really can't like argue with them. 145 batting average against that pitch this year, uh, and a 203 WOBA, and then last year, pretty much the same. It was only gave up a 104 batting average and a 200 WOBA, so no one can touch this pitch. The one qualm I have about Anderson is that his curveball is really not a very good pitch, and
Does he even
I
throw a
don't know if
curveball? He throws
he
a
does.
fastball, a changeup, and a cutter.
Uh, I've got him throwing the curveball 20% of the time on the Savant page. So he's in the first percentile of spin rate on that curve. So
Okay, CU
clearly the
probably does
batters are.
stand for curve, doesn't it? For some reason, I
Oh
was
yeah,
thinking that meant cutter.
yeah. That's like a confusing way
So
that they name that pitch, but yeah, that's a curveball.
okay, gotcha.
And yeah, the hitters are kind of just teeing off on this pitch. So slugging percentage 543 on the curveball. I wouldn't. I don't know if how exactly just a fastball and changeup mix would work, but you almost wonder if he needs to like scrap that pitch completely, the curveball.
I don't know if I would scrap it and go a 2 pitch mix as a starter. I don't know if that's something that I mean Inoa does it, and I don't know
Yeah,
how.
there's pitchers that do the two pitch mix, but it's usually with like a slider. So I don't know how it would work with just a fastball and a changeup, but he needs to go back to the drawing board on that curveball because right now it's not working at all.
Well, and maybe he needs to scrap it and get a slider instead, like work on a slider during the off season. I don't know, but
Yeah, but
ooh,
the last thing I'll say is that
he could talk
go ahead.
to Tyler Glass now and learn the slutter.
That would be really nice.
I,
But even with that kind of bad pitch at this point, he's still getting the results like you're saying, and he's still been pretty good. So I think with a little tweak, maybe he can he can really get even closer to what he was doing 2020 results wise.
there. All right. So it is now time for pick number 2 from the Gotham Rouse.
Okay, my pick. It's another left-handed pitcher actually. Um, 24 years old. He made his debut in the playoffs last year, and um, he made his like season debut, I guess, regular season debut this year, and that's the Tampa Bay Rays Shane McClanahan. So this guy, his stuff is pretty much unmatched, whether you're a young pitcher or not. It's ridiculous. Um, the way his slider and his fastball work together. So he was a 2018 first rounder. He throws 43% sliders and 40% fastballs. He mixes in a changeup and the curveball. Um, so far, he's made, I think, 7 starts. Um, already striking out 30% of the guys, only walking 7.2%. He's got a amazing CSW of 33.5%. So he's really um, using the called strikes plus the you know whiff stuff to his advantage so far. I think if he can work on his command of his fastball a little bit, because he's kind of getting crushed a little bit when he leaves those too much over the heart of the plate. But once he does that, because he certainly has the raw talent to do it, I think he's going to be talked about in the same tier as his teammate Tyler Glasnow as being one of the best pitchers in the league.
Or the way that Snell had been the past couple of years in Tampa, and yeah, no,
Yeah,
I love that pick. I actually had him way down in my list just because he didn't have a whole lot of experience. So I don't feel comfortable enough judging young players until I
yeah,
start
that's
seeing
fair.
more. So
And that's a good point about the Rays. They seem like they know exactly what they're doing with pitchers.
yeah,
He's
I
in the
mean,
right place to develop.
hell, you said he was drafted in 2018, right?
Yeah.
And he skipped AAA.
And they had
And
enough confidence to throw him out there in the World Series without ever pitching in the regular season. Pretty crazy.
after spending time at just the alternate site all season.
Yep. Yeah.
So, yeah. No, McClanahan is. I am really curious to see kind of how he progresses because that 4.11 ERA with the stuff that he has could come down into the mid threes and be consistently there, I think. Assuming
Yep.
that he fixes a couple issues and letting his fastball kind of float over the plate. Some of those things that you mentioned. So I like that pick. Which I'm sure you have kind of seen how I'm going about my draft here. So you tell me who my next pick is.
Oh wow. I don't know if I can do that because then I might like give up who my pick is.
I'll give you a hint. He's a sinker baller.
Sinker ball.
Debuted last year. He was not the opening day starter, but he was in the opening day rotation for this American League team.
Oh,
Um,
I think I know who it is. Is
he
it Brady Singer?
It is Brady Singer. 24 years old, about to turn 25 here in August. He was the 18th overall pick in the 2018 draft by the Royals. Let me find my actual notes. So he debuted in 2020. He actually started 12 games, stayed in the rotation the whole season. I don't think he even got injured. I think he just threw every one of his starts, didn't he?
Yeah, he made 12 starts, which
I think is about the max. Well, 60
that
game
is the max.
season every 5
He
days.
led the
Yeah.
league. Yeah.
So he threw 64 innings across those 12 games, to the tune of a 4.06 ERA, backed by a 4.08 FIP. 218 average against, 260 BABIP. Only struck out 23.2% of guys that he faced. Walked 8.7%. But his CSW across all of 2020 was actually 32.3. So he was a pretty effective pitcher at getting. I don't even want to like say what I was about to say because I know that I'm going to say something that makes me sound or say the opposite of what CSW actually means. But yeah, 32.3 CSW, so pretty good season there. Oh, shoot. Sorry. That's this season. I somehow labeled them both 2020. So shows how my day's going. So that was 2021. So he's been really good so far this season. Last year, he actually had across 59 innings in 12 games. A 4.88 ERA, a 3.45 FIP. No. Oh my goodness. Okay. Let me start over because I've confused me and probably everyone else. 2020, Brady Singer, 64.1 innings pitched across 12 games, 4.06 ERA, 4.08 FIP, 32.3 CSW. 2021, 12 games started so far, 59 innings. So he's not being quite as efficient as last year as far as going deep into starts. He does have a higher ERA at 4.88, but he has a 345 FIP. So the defense behind him is probably playing into that inflated ERA just a little bit. Um, I honestly couldn't tell you much about the Royals defense this year. They've been losing a lot recently, so I wouldn't be shocked if it's been bad. His Ks and walk percentages are about the same as last year, so he's got the same stuff. His ERA is just inflated over last year. But his CSW is actually still right at 30. So he is still pitching well. The results just aren't showing. But he's got a career 2.2 WAR. So if you need any clarifications there, because I backtracked on myself like 4 times as far as what was what year, please feel free to ask now.
Yeah, I like Singer. Like even like you mentioned that he doesn't really get the Ks, but this year in 2021 he's only giving up barrels and 3.4% of the time. So he kind of seems like a guy that can get away with not having the strikeout stuff. And the one thing that I like about him is just how competitive he looks like on the mound. He was the guy that was pretty famous uh, for like going crazy at an umpire in the College World Series, I think, at Florida. So like his competitive fire, and I think he's going to start getting better results based on some of the things you said. So like it.
Good deal. What is your number 3 pick?
My number 3 pick is 24-year-old right-handed pitcher for the Astros, Luis Garcia. One of the many Luis Garcias around the league right now. So this guy really is a lot different than some of the guys that we've mentioned, like Rogers, Anderson, McClanahan, Singer, because all those guys were first-round picks. This guy, Luis Garcia, signed for $20,000 back in 2017. So basically no money. And now he's here in the big leagues. He jumped from single A to the big leagues in 2020. Pretty much no one had heard about this guy behind guys on his own team in terms of the prospect type, like Forrest Whitley and Christian Javier and guys like that. So no one really expected much. And since the Astros had a bunch of COVID issues last year, they just needed a guy to fill innings. Luis Garcia shows up, and he's actually like really good. Last year he didn't get a ton of strikeouts, but the thing that I like about him is that he has actually 5 pitches that he throws a decent amount. So he has a 4-seamer, cutter, slider, changeup, and curve. The slider is the key pitch for him. So this year he's getting on his slider, he's getting 3.9 additional inches horizontally and 7.6 inches of drop more than the average slider, which is just absurd. He actually doesn't throw that pitch a whole lot. He throws his fastball a good amount. So if I were to give Luis Garcia a recommendation, I would say start throwing your amazing slider more often, and things are going to go well for you. So far, I don't have his stats up here, but he's been really good, and he had another really nice start last afternoon. So yeah, he's pitched to a 2.75 ERA this year, striking at 28.8%, 8% walk. And, yeah, that's my pick, Luis Garcia.
Yeah, it looks like yesterday he went 6 innings, giving up only 3 hits, 1 earned run, 8 strikeouts, and only walked 2. So that's a really good game. So I'm not going to lie. Luis Garcia is one of the guys that I'm like, he's not going to crack my rotation. So I didn't even bother to look him up. So I don't really have a whole lot to add here. I kind of feel bad because, like, the biggest reason that I didn't is because, like I said, you've kind of seen my draft strategy here. Go for guys that I feel like I can project a little bit and see kind of their trajectory for their career. And with him really only pitching in this season, a little bit last year, but not much. Just didn't feel comfortable saying much about him, but I definitely think I'm going to start paying a little bit more attention to him now.
Yeah, I don't
So,
think people really know about him, and he's been really good. So I think he deserves some attention.
yeah. All right. So, ready for my number 4?
I am ready.
All right. So, sticking to my strategy here, I'm going with Casey
Okay.
Mize.
All right.
So Casey Mize was I believe he was Detroit's number 1 prospect, right? Or was he their number
Um,
3 or 4?
I'm guessing he was the number one prospect. That would make sense.
Yeah, he was their number 1 pitching prospect at least for the last couple years. He debuted last year, had a little bit of a rough go. I did a terrible job of taking my notes on Casey Mize. So he actually had a minus .2 WAR in his rookie season last year. And I know, well, shoot, let me just pull it up so that I can actually talk about it. Let's see. So his 7 starts in his rookie season last year, he had a 6.99 ERA and a 6.47 FIP. So looks really bad right off the start. He was only striking out 19.5% of his of batters he faced, and he was walking about 10%. He really his whip was incredibly high at 148. And I believe it was mostly walks that was his issue. And then he also suffered to the home run bug a little bit last year, giving up 2.22 home runs per 9 innings. So this year, though, he has kind of started coming into his own. He is currently, after 11 games, 64 and 2/3 innings, he's pitching to the tune of a 3.34 ERA. He's got a 4.72 FIP, so I would expect that ERA to probably go up a little bit. Probably. He walks a lot of guys, and so I think that's part of why his FIP is up where it is. His expected ERA is also at a 4.45, so I do expect regression there. His strikeout rate has gone up to 20.4%, so still not great, considering in the minors he was striking out about 24% on average. But his biggest thing this year is that he's quit giving up as many home runs. He's down to 139 home runs per 9, which is a lot more sustainable. And he's got his walk rate down to 7.7. So he's starting to find his command. So the results aren't really there for Casey Mize yet. But the reason that I want him at my number 4 spot is just because of the stuff that he has. So he has a plus fastball, a plus slider, and I'm rating those based on a 55 prospect grade, would essentially be a plus. A 60 would be a plus, 65 or a 70 would be 3 pluses. So he has a plus fastball, a 2 plus slider, a 3 plus splitter, and he has a 60 graded command. So he's got the stuff to turn it around and be amazing. And so he's starting to show progress towards reaching that. He's not there yet, but that's why I'm taking him at number 4.
Yeah, for sure. He was. He was number 1 pick in the draft, so he's got that draft pedigree, and it wasn't like really a debate that year. He was going to be the number 1 pick when the draft happened. There was no real debate over it. So he dominated in the minor leagues as well. So I think he's got the potential to get a lot better, and results have been not horrible, I guess, for this year. So like 3.34 ERA, you can live with that, and there's lots of room for growth as well.
Yep. So down starting to get towards the bottom of my rotation, at least that's kind of where I'm looking as room for growth. So who is your number 4 pick?
My number 4 pick is a guy that he's been pitching since 2019, so he's got a bit more experience than most of these guys. But this year, it looks like he's having his true breakout season, and that guy is Dylan Cease. Dylan Cease was a pretty hyped up prospect. He wasn't a first round pick because he came out of high school and people didn't know if he was going to sign, but he was one of the main pieces in the Jose Quintana trade, along with Eloy Jimenez to go to the White Sox. And first couple of seasons, he showed us really impressive stuff, but he walked a ton of guys and was just kind of getting crushed a little bit. This year, um, he's putting it all together. So he's got 86 percentile fastball velocity, 96 percentile on the spin of the fastball, and 86 percentile on the curve spin rate. Um, his curveball, we were talking about the drop on pitches. It gets 9.8 inches greater than the average curveball, which is just absurd. He's getting 51% whiffs on the slider this year, and then his fastball obviously is very high velocity. So pairing those things together is really working for him. And one thing that I saw was that his in the zone contact rate, it was 83.6% in 2019, 84.9% in 2020. So those are kind of average, middling kind of rates. And then this year, he's only given up contact on 75.1% pitches in the zone. So even for pitches that batters could potentially be hitting in the zone, they're still swinging and missing because they just can't hit this guy. So Dylan Cease is my pick.
Yeah, I like that pick. Dylan Cease is actually the one I was texting you about earlier. The one thing that I've noticed to Dylan Cease that kind of scares me a little bit is, so he had been notorious for giving up home runs the past couple of years. He actually, both of the last 2 years, he had a 1.85 home runs per nine in his home run per fly ball ratio. In 2019 was 21.4%. In 2020 was 18.2%, so positive progress there. In 21, it's down to 0.73 home runs per nine at a 7.6 home run per fly ball rate. That's not sustainable. So that's really low for anybody. So I would expect that to go up. So his ERA is probably not going to be where it is now unless he makes a couple other changes as well. But I do still like that pick. I think this is easily the best season he's had in his career so far. So.
Yep, good point. Last pick.
All right, so my last pick, and I'll try and go a little faster with this one, which is easy because there's a lot less stats for this guy. I'm changing up the way that I'm drafting for my number 5 spot, and I'm going with a guy who just debuted this year. I am going Spencer Howard out of Philadelphia. So Spencer Howard, he debuted in 2020. Spencer Howard has only pitched 38 innings in the major leagues. He is looking like he's pitching as well in the majors as he did in the minors, and I at least as far as his strikeout rate is concerned. He was striking out about 30% of batters across the minor leagues, across his minor league seasons. He's striking out 29.7 in the MLB. He does have an inflated walk rate right now, compared to his historic, well, really compared to anyone. He's walking 17.2% of batters right now. It's bad. He usually floats around 8. So I expect that to come down. His FIP right now, let's see. I can't find my scrolly bar. There we go. So he currently is sitting at a 4.61 ERA, with a 3.22 FIP. So it makes you think that he's not getting the results that he deserves, but his xFIP is actually 5. So his xFIP is higher than both his ERA and his FIP, which doesn't really mean everything, but he's definitely got some command issues. Um, but he has a really, really good changeup. He was the Phillies' #1 prospect, and his changeup graded out at a 60. And that's his best pitch. I think everything else was floating in the 50-55 range. So he's got good stuff. If he could fix his command, I think he could be really good. And I just kind of wanted to give him some love here and throw him in as my kind of sleeper pick to take off.
Yeah. This guy was. I'll be honest. This guy was completely off my radar just because how bad he's been, especially with the walks this year. So, um, but yeah, you're right about him being a really big prospect, and that gives me some confidence at least that he'll be able to turn things around. So, hopefully he does. But he's also on the Phillies, so I
Yeah.
don't know.
I will let you know he was not the next guy in my rankings as far as my list here. I went way down to grab him for this, but I wanted to give him some love because I think that he's
Okay.
not getting quite the recognition he deserves because he's not quite as bad as he looks, but he's still kind of bad right now.
Yeah.
But all right, last pick of the draft. Who you got?
Last pick. All right. I'm stuck between two guys. One guy we talked about last week. One guy is kind of stalled in his career, I would say, because people had really high hopes for him. Who should I go with? I don't know.
I know who your stalled one is, and that's actually who my next guy was. I'd go with him.
All right, so that's Jesus Luzardo.
Not who I was thinking. I didn't even know he was eligible.
So he's pitching out of the
Oh,
bullpen right now because he just came off an injury where
okay.
he banged his left pinky against a table playing video games, which is definitely a candidate for one of the weirdest injuries this year. But Luzardo, another guy with ridiculous stuff. If you're starting to see a theme with the kind of guys that I like to pick draft, he throws 98 from the left side. In 2020, he had his first time as a starter. He pitched a little bit out of the bullpen in 2019. He had a 4.12 ERA in 2020 and 59 innings. Um, really good at limiting hard contact. So in 19, only 23.1%, only 36.7% in 2020, and then 32.3% in 2021. But he's not really taken that next step to being like a truly dependable starter. And what I'm hoping is that after this freak, I don't know about freak occurrence, but just like the really bad circumstances that his injury happened, because that should never really happen to anyone, especially a guy that gets paid to use his left hand. But hopefully that's kind of like a wake up call for him, and he gets his act together and reaches his potential. So that's why I'm
Yeah.
picking him here.
I honestly thought you were going with Chris Paddock.
No, he was under consideration a little bit. The other guy I had in mind for this pick was Alek Manoah.
Okay. Yeah. I decided to rule out Manoa just because he'd only pitched 2 games. But so yeah, I was going with Chris Paddock because even though he's not really been as good as his rookie season, I think he's got some fixable things that could bring him back up. But all right, cool. So just
Yeah,
a quick recap: my rotation of top guys under the age of 26, debuting in 19, 20, or 21. Zach Gallen is my ace. Ian Anderson, Brady Singer, Casey Mize, and Spencer Howard.
and then my guys, Trevor Rogers, Shane McClanahan, Luis Garcia, Dylan Cease, and Jesus Luzardo.
So go ahead and feel free to comment on YouTube or Twitch and let us know how you think we drafted. Or if you're listening on Spotify or whatever, tweet at us. Love to hear your feedback. See if we missed any guys. So, all right. Time to wrap it up and go with our new segment. I'll go pretty quick. So we are doing this day in history. I've just got 5 quick facts that I thought were interesting about June 7th across multiple years. I'm going from most recent to furthest back. So June 7th has historically been around the time of the MLB draft. So a couple of these are draft related. The first one is not. In 2013, Yasiel Puig on June 7th hit his 4th home run in his 5th career game. I know you were mentioning Aquino and Patrick Wisdom and Trevor Story is hitting a bunch of home runs in their first week to 2 weeks with the team. Yasiel Puig actually did the same thing back in 2013. In 2010, Bryce Harper was actually drafted first overall as a catcher at 17 years old by the Washington Nationals.
Hey, I'm wondering if the lack of games today was because the draft might have been today, and they wanted to have all the focus on that before they ended up pushing it back to the All-Star break.
Oh, that could have been. I didn't think about that. It's a good thought. Because I think they usually do on day one try and have fewer games, don't they?
I'm not sure if they do, but that would have been a smart thing to do, actually. Yeah. MLB using their brain for once.
Yeah, I actually like that they pushed it to the All-Star game.
Yeah, I like that too. Yeah, get the attention on it because it doesn't really get the same hype as NFL and NBA.
Yeah. All right. Fact number 3. In 1994, Rickey Henderson snagged his 1,100th stolen base on June 7th.
That is just hard to comprehend how many bases that is.
Well, and it's not even anywhere near his record-leading 1,492nd. Does that sound right?
Something like that, yeah.
It's 1,400 and something. But in 1986, Bo Jackson actually slipped to the 4th round of the MLB draft. A lot of teams didn't think that he would actually play in the MLB at all. They thought since he was a Heisman Trophy winner that he would go to the NFL, and they were right. He did. But Bo Jackson is one of the 2 multi-sport athletes to make it big in both the NFL and the MLB. I still think Kyler Murray should have done both. Whatever. And then my final stat. This one is kind of the most, or not stat. My final fact. This one just kind of was weird. It's a bit long, so bear with me. In 1938, Bill McGowan threw out Johnny Allen on opening day. He was a Cleveland Indians pitcher. So Bill McGowan ordered him to cut off a part of his shirt sleeve because it was torn and dangling, distracting a batter. Allen refused to cut his jersey, so he's not Chris Sale. He walked off the mound, was ejected. His own manager fined him $250 in 1938. And the Oscar Vitt, his manager, then made a pitching change to avoid forfeiting the game.
That is a great story, and I'm glad we're doing this segment so stories like that can live through history.
Yeah, I thought that was wild. So I saw that and figured this is the way to end this podcast today. So that being said, that's all I got.
All right, yeah. So, yeah, thanks for tuning in to this episode. Please keep an eye on our social media throughout the week for more baseball content, and we've also got some cool things coming up on the horizon. We have an audio version of the podcast now available on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and some other platforms. Apple Podcasts will be coming soon. And if you like baseball cards, please subscribe to the Getaway Day MLB Podcast YouTube account to get notifications when new content is posted. We will talk to you next week.
We did do a baseball card video on Saturday of this week, opening the brand new 2021 Topps Finest, and we got some hits. Definitely check that out.
All right. Thank you so much, and take care.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good night.